somebody from outside of the airline will have been wronged by a pilot and feel upset by something that pilot did, and they will reach out. They will straight up write letters, write emails, make phone calls.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilot, what is up? It is Nick Fialka. I am here with you. I'm hoping you're having a great day. I certainly am. I am coming to you today with another solo episode, and today we're going to talk about hard things. And I don't mean rocks or diamonds or anything like that. I mean the exact opposite. Arrests, failures, low grades, things that are obstacles on your application, something that has happened to you where you have stumbled in your past. And we're going to chat about it because I think that it's a really important topic and it comes up quite often. Really kind of surprised how often it comes up. And that to me is telling that we're not perfect and we're all human, and that's okay. First, I want to start it off with a disclaimer, okay? Like, I'm not a lawyer. I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night. I don't have legal advice for you. So if you have something like that, you need to certainly speak with a lawyer, but you certainly want to understand where you're going and also what the ramifications are. And we're going to kind of go into that, right? Something in your past. Let's start with arrests, right? Let's say you got arrested. Maybe you got a DUI. There's probably two categories, right? A DUI or some kind of misdemeanor or felony that is not a DUI. DUIs seem to be relatively prevalent when it comes to an arrest. Oftentimes I seem to run across a DUI, people with that. And I want to tell you that it's definitely is something you should not do. But if you have done it and you've gotten in trouble for it, it's not the end of the road. You can still be a professional pilot. You can still have an awesome career, and there's still really cool opportunities out there. Some bigger companies have a requirement that 10 years had passed since the DUI, or they might have some kind of timeline on there. They might not. So you never know until you try. But certainly what I tell people is that you need to claim it, you need to own it, and you need to be able to explain it and what you've learned from it. Some other organizations, some of my competitors out there, they'll tell you to kind of avoid it and keep it quiet and not talk about it. I don't feel like that's it. I feel like, well, we'll get into that later, right? So I feel like there's a lot of things there. But if you have something more substantial, some kind of arrest for something serious, maybe you were found not guilty, maybe it was expunged from your record, maybe you served time for it. I don't know. There's so many different avenues with that. And that's like when it comes down to the lawyer conversations and stuff like that. But it's probably going to come up again. If you don't get in front of it, there is a good chance that this can rear its head in the future, even if you get the job, even if you've been working there for a couple years. I've seen it. I have seen it happen. I'll tell you a story about that in a little bit. If you don't bring it up in your interview and you don't have it on your application, oftentimes something can pop up on a background check. You never know what companies are digging in what holes to find out information. And it's been some very surprising stuff that I've seen over my time where people have failed to disclose something and it has popped up. Some companies do super thorough background checks and some organizations don't. And you never know what organization you're going to be working for. So I would always think about what the most stringent possibility is. And be sure you know where you stand legally, because that company is going to want to have that discussion. And if you're sitting with an interviewer and having a conversation about something that might be way over their head, They could pause the interview and bring somebody else in to have that conversation. And they're going to have to really decide what is best for their company. On the application, right? Sometimes it'll say, have you ever been convicted of a crime? Sometimes it'll say, have you ever been charged with a crime? Sometimes it'll say, have you ever been arrested for something? So make sure you RTFQ, right? Read the freaking question, and in your application, write it clearly and explain yourself. If you have it on your application and you get a call to interview, that means they've seen it. That means that they know that is on there, and that is something that they're going to definitely ask you about, but they're okay with it, and they want to hear what you have to say in order to make an educated decision of whether you would be a good fit for that organization. And so when you're in the room interviewing, have confidence in that. Know that they know who you are, and you get to explain a little bit more about the finer details, because it is definitely the elephant in the room. Okay. Honesty, man. Honesty is always the best policy with this. And you need to own it, right? The way I like to teach it is own it, regret it, and learn from it, right? So just saying you were young and dumb. Listen, I had a recruiter call me up probably about a month, maybe 2 months ago. We were having a conversation, and somebody was in the room and had a DUI. Oh, no. They had a charge where they hit somebody while they were driving their car, and they hurt the person pretty bad, and they got arrested for it and charged for it. And it was on the record, and they put it on their application, and they asked him about it. And the guy said, I was young and dumb. I was 18 at the time, and it's definitely in the past. That person did not get the job. If you have something significant that needs to be talked about, you need to first be able to craft your story. You need to talk about what happened and how terrible it is, and show that you are an empathetic human and that you have moved forward from this point and garnered a lot of knowledge from it, right? What did you learn from this? Okay, that's the first step, is having the discussion about what happened, clearly articulating yourself, and then what you learned from it, why it was a mistake, what you've learned from it, and now how did you overcome that? What did you do over a period of time to be better because of it? And that is the telling part. That is probably the secret sauce, is what did you learn? How did you overcome it? How are you better from it? And that, I think, is really compelling. I have met a lot of people that have gotten DUIs, and they have joined programs like Alcoholics Anonymous or HIMS, which is a similar thing to Alcoholics Anonymous for professional pilots. And there are some other nonprofit organizations that people get involved with. They are vibrant members of that, and it's a big part of their identity. And it shows that they have acknowledged that they had a problem, that they made a mistake, and that they are better because of it, and society is better because of that. And that's a good news story. It's a beautiful thing. So it can be scary and difficult to talk about this stuff. And when I do my interview coaching, when we are doing our precision interview coaching at Spitfire, it's a big group of aviators, and we're all sitting there listening. It's a big Zoom call, right? We're all listening to people answer questions and the critiques about how they do it and what they've said and how they could say it better and articulate themselves clearer, maybe some points to talk about. And I always tell them, hey, if you've got something hard to talk about, give me a call and let's talk about it one-on-one. And that's what you need, is a one-on-one discussion about something that's difficult. You don't need to bring it up in a public forum for the first time. You deserve that attention, and you deserve that clarity without distraction. So find that. If you want to talk about something like that, come on over to the Spitfire world. We'd love to have you. But I'm going to pivot a little bit and we're going to talk about omission, right? If you leave it off, if you choose to leave something off of your application and you omit it, that truth will come back to haunt you at some point. And this is my cautionary tale. We've had people in the past that I have known that had some kind of problem, maybe like a nasty divorce or some kind of angry boyfriend, girlfriend kind of thing, or anything, an upset neighbor even. I've seen that where somebody from outside of the airline will have been wronged by a pilot and feel upset by that, by something that pilot did. And they will reach out. They will straight up write letters, write emails, make phone calls. They'll get in touch with chief pilots. They'll get in touch with operations departments at airlines. I've seen it. All the time. It's very surprising. I knew of a story of a person whose neighbor got upset because of something about mowing their yard. And that neighbor wrote an email to the chief pilot of the guy's airline and said that he was abusing his spouse, which was totally fabricated. But this anger of the pilot, one of the things I want to talk about is omission of the truth, because if you omit something and you are hired, man, it can come back to haunt you. And especially if there was a person that was harmed and they're mad at you and they see maybe on your social media that you got hired by some great airline or something cool is happening in your life and they want to wreck it. And they've been harmed. They want to make sure if you have, even if it's not something where you were arrested for, right? But if you've got like a messy divorce going on, or you've got some kind of problem with who knows what, a neighbor or some kind of legal thing or whatever it is, the best thing I can tell you is to make sure that your chief pilot is aware of it, because bad news does not get better with age. Just like in the aircraft, right? There's a safety issue. You always want to come clean and make sure that you get ahead of it. But same thing here. If there's a personal issue that could affect you in your job and you're a new hire, or even if you've been there for years, set up an appointment with that chief and have a private conversation to say, hey, listen, I'm going through a messy divorce. Things are not going well. And my wife is very upset at me. And I don't know I don't know if this can come back and haunt me or whatever, but I just want you to know, this is something I'm working through. Everything is safe in the aircraft. I'm a great pilot. I just want you to aware, I have a personal issue. If you were to get a phone call or something like that, at least you would know about it. And that chief pilot, I've spoken to them. They're very receptive about that. They want to know ahead of time, because if they're blindsided by it, the only thing that they can do is move toward the safest thing for their organization. So if you're out flying and somebody calls in and says something really nasty and chief has no idea about it, they're probably going to ground you. They're probably going to once you land, they're going to probably stop you and call you directly in for a conversation. They're going to ask you dude, why didn't you tell me about this before? So just a little tip about that. And back to hard things to talk about, like those arrests on your record and things. If you omit that and it comes back, I've seen people that have been arrested for something and they've flown for years at an airline and then got in trouble for some kind of, maybe something to do with being at work on time or too many sick days or whatever. And then the company starts looking in what is up with this person? It seems like there's been an issue. They've been here for years, but now things are popping up. And it's not unheard of for HR departments to do a scrub of the internet and figure out, there are people at airlines that dig for stuff. I've seen regionals that have people in HR that have fake Facebook accounts and that spend their day, their whole job is to spend their days digging up dirt when needed for a person that's in trouble. And I've seen people get fired for omitting, hey, you got arrested on this day. Well, it was dropped. Well, you didn't put it on your background check information when you were a new hire. So see you later. Thanks for stopping by. And that's it. And then all of a sudden you're fired for cause at some kind of partway stop to where you really wanted to be. And that is a huge danger. And you don't want to live with that over your head. So I challenge you to find a way to articulate yourself the best, because you don't want that to come back and haunt you. Let's shift gears just a little bit. Let's talk about failed check rides. Failed check rides they used to be a big discriminating factor when they didn't need pilots and everybody was just fat happy on all these pilots and they had 50 people to interview and they only needed 3. That would be an easy discriminator to say, hey, we don't want anybody with failed check rides. But today, it's a little bit different. There's a huge need for pilots. There's a huge vacuum. And so companies have eased their process a little bit and they're allowing people with failed check rides. And so if you've stubbed your toe and failed a check ride, even if it's multiple, 3, 4, 5 check rides, if you get a call to come interview, like I said earlier, they already know. They know that you are not perfect. They know that you've had some stumbling blocks, but they want to hear it. They want you to talk about it and to convince them that this is something that is something you've overcame, something that you are a much better pilot for. And so here's what they're going to do. They're going to say, oh man, I see here you've got 4 failures and that seems like an awful lot. Why do you have so many failures? And now the ball's in your court and it's time for you to explain what happened. It's time for you to have the conversation about the difficulty in the learning process, the difficulty in performing under pressure. They want to know specifically, right? If you failed your private. When I interviewed at my company, I had failed a mid-stage check in the Navy, and they asked me what I had failed. And I was kind of taken off guard because it had been 20 years. I never really thought about it. And what it was like no flap landings, which are pretty simple and something people do all the time, but I was having a hard time with it. And so I had to have the discussion about the fact that when I was young and in flight training in the Navy, I had never been in a plane before. And as I was learning this, I just couldn't get that sight picture of no flap landings. I'd be high and fast, I'd be low and slow, I'd be off profile. And they had very specific profiles that you had to fly. They were all AOA approaches. And for me as a new guy, I thought it was pretty difficult. And then I stopped there and the guy looked at me and he's like, well, did you learn anything from it? I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. And so I went into it, man, you know what? I learned that nobody's perfect. I also learned that you need to know your numbers. If you know your numbers that you're looking for, you can manage your profile all the way down and hit those numbers every single time. But if you don't know your numbers like the back of your hand, then you're going to be off profile and you're just kind of hoping. You're throwing it right out there, hoping that that's where you're going to be. So the people that can really calculate where they are on the profile and know those numbers that they're trying to hit, if they can hit those, then they're going to be super successful. And once I figured that out, I was able to be successful. And I carried that forward because I came back to that same squadron 4 years later as an instructor. And I instructed hundreds of students how to do these landings and how to be pros at them. And every single kid that came through that was my on wing, my person that I brought to solo, every single one of them passed their check ride. And that to me shows that I've learned what it takes and I've learned how to communicate and how to understand and what people really need to know. And once that was revealed to me, I was able to be better because of it. And that's what they wanted to hear, right? They didn't want to just hear like, I'm not good. I'm not good at stalls. I'm not good at this. I didn't do that. They want to know the whole story. So you've got to wrap a pretty little bow around it by the time you're done. And the way you do that straight up is practice. The way you do that is get the reps in, because you'll hear us say all the time, you can put points on the board or you can leave them on the table. And if you are not getting your reps in, just like a pro football team, they get their reps in, they get their reps in, they get their reps in, and they are excellent. If you're not getting your reps in, you're not going to get drafted. So that's kind of how it comes down to. Don't worry about stubbing your toe, and you can talk through it. One thing I will add, okay, let's say you got the CJO. Let's say you're going to a major and you're super stoked about it, or you're going to a regional or whatever, and there's a 5-month wait. There's a 5-month wait to get in there, and your company that you're at decides to put you through annual training again, and you fail your checkride. Dang, like, is your CJO gone? No, but it's up to you if it's gone or not. The first thing you could do is not tell anybody, and then they're going to pull your PREA after you start work, and they're going to find out, and they're going to ask you to leave, and then you'll have no job. Or you can reach out to the pilot hiring email that you've got and let them know, hey, listen, I stumbled, I had a really bad day, and I just failed this check ride. I went ahead and I've passed it. I understand if that rescinds my conditional job offer, but I just want to be upfront so that everybody knows. And if you'd like to talk about it, here's my phone number. Boom. And you can just lay that out, and they'll be receptive to it, because, man, life happens and nobody's perfect. So mishaps, another big one. If you have a mishap and the NTSB did not take action against you, then you're probably okay. You're probably able to still score a job, but you need to get your story straight. Your story needs to be clear. And I would probably bring the NTSB reports with me to the interview, any supporting documentation that you can have to show them, because they only have a short amount of time to talk to you in the interview. And so if you bring something up like that and they're not ready to hear about it, then it's going to cause a problem. So mishaps, they're not great, especially if NTSB took action against you. So you've got to be clear about what happened. You know, I ran off the runway. I banged into another plane that was parked, whatever it is. I crashed a plane, all sorts of things. I've talked to people that have done some crazy things, like, hey, I ran over somebody's foot and broke their toe when I was taxiing, or I clipped a lineman with a wing when I wasn't paying attention because I got light on the brakes and the airplane slid forward. The specifics to you are important to be able to lay out, and you need to be able to talk to the interviewers so that they understand the same kind of process, right? Like, this is what I did. This was what was wrong with it. This is what I learned from it. And this is how I use it today to make myself better and to make others better as well, because that's an important part of the process. So yeah, that's it. We've been talking for a little while, and that's my take on hard things, on arrests, on DUIs, on failing check rides, mishaps, you know. So to sum it up, right, we're going to own it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to tell about what we've learned, and we're going to talk about how we're better because of it and how we use it today. So I hope this was great value for you, and we'll see you on the next episode. Hey, before I let you go, I need to mention one thing, because a lot of people are asking me, can you do anything? Can you help me with this? And the answer is yes. At Spitfire Elite, we will make more millionaires this year than Major League Baseball will make in the next 5 years. Our company actually does this. It's called Spitfire Elite Interview Consulting, and you can find us over at SpitfireElite.com. Our clients, they call us the easy button for interview prep, because everything you need to crush your interview is there in one spot. Whether it's application review or interview prep, all of it is covered. We've helped thousands of clients who are now flying at their dream jobs because our coaches gave them the one-on-one feedback that they needed to succeed on the biggest day of their life. The best part of Spitfire is our community. All Spitfire clients will get access to our private chats where they can work with each other and they can work with our coaches and get the latest information on all the airlines. If you'd like to make sure that you are 100% ready to go on your big day, there is only one choice. Everything you need is in one place, and I think it's pretty affordable. You'll have to take a look for yourself. Just go over to SpitfireElite.com and check us out. Use the coupon code PODCAST and it'll save you 10%. And by the way, I will see you on the next episode. The statements made on this show are my own opinions and do not reflect, nor are they under any direction from my employer.